My name is Alex, and last week I found out I don't biologically belong to my family. It started as a joke, a $99 DNA test from one of those ancestry kits. I thought it would be fun to confirm the Italian heritage my dad always bragged about. Your great grandfather was a baker from Naples, he used to say, while overcooking spaghetti. It was harmless, a curiosity. I wasn't looking for anything. I wasn't expecting anything. But when the results came in, something in my chest turned cold. No matches, none. I refreshed the page 3 times. Then I reinstalled the app. Maybe I'd entered my name wrong. Maybe it was a glitch, but the data didn't lie. According to the test, I shared 0% DNA with James or Carolyn Gray, my parents. I stared at the screen. Then I laughed. Out loud. Like it was a joke that just didn't land. Like my phone was lying. But it didn't stop there. I submitted a second test through a different company. Waited in silence for 2 weeks. Sleepless. Anxious. I didn't tell anyone. Not even my girlfriend. I told myself I'd made a mistake. That the truth would correct itself. It didn't. The second result came back the same. Not related to anyone in my family. Not even my little sister. And that's when something in me cracked. A small hairline fracture in my world, spreading fast. Everything that felt solid suddenly wasn't. And the worst part? I still haven't told them. Because deep down, a voice keeps whispering, what if they already know? I started looking at them differently. Every laugh at the dinner table felt a bit more forced. Every old photograph on the wall, a bit more staged. I'd catch myself staring at my mom's eyes, trying to find pieces of myself in her face. Her nose, my dad's jaw, my sister's chin. But none of it matched. None of it ever had. Was I just noticing it now? Or had I always known, deep down, that something didn't fit? I went digging, quietly, carefully. I started in the attic, pulling out old boxes filled with dusty albums, hospital papers, report cards, certificates. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. Just anything that said, yes, you were born here. You belong here. But the deeper I looked, the stranger things became. There was no birth certificate, only a hospital bracelet with my name handwritten on it. No photos of my mom pregnant with me. None. My sister had plenty, smiling belly shots, baby shower cards, sonograms pinned in scrapbooks. But for me, it was like I materialized out of nowhere at age 2, wearing a red jacket I still own but have no memory of. I asked my mom casually, "Do you have any baby pictures of me as a newborn?" She blinked too long, smiled too quick. "Oh, they're somewhere. You know how things get lost over time." She lied. I could feel it. Her voice dipped just enough. Her eyes darted left before they met mine again. And then my dad started acting strange. Not aggressive, just too calm, like he was waiting for something. Every time I walked into the room, he'd stop talking or change the subject. One night I caught him standing in the hallway outside my room, just listening. When I opened the door, he didn't flinch. He just said, "Can't sleep?" and walked off. That night I couldn't either, because now it wasn't just about the DNA. Now it felt like I was surrounded by actors, rehearsing a script I hadn't read. I stopped eating dinner with them. It felt easier that way. Sitting across the table, pretending everything was fine, laughing at old family stories that I suddenly didn't believe I was part of, it made my skin itch. So I said I was busy with work. Then I started staying at my girlfriend's apartment more often, even though I couldn't tell her why. I wasn't ready to say it out loud, because once you do, it becomes real. I kept digging. I searched online birth records, paid for access to databases, checked my social security application date. It was filed 2 years later than it should have been, and the address listed wasn't ours. It was in a different town, one we never talked about. I drove there. It was quiet. Older houses, dead-end streets with cracked sidewalks. I parked across from the address listed on the document. The house was abandoned, overgrown lawn, boarded windows, a place where something had ended, Not begun? And that's where I found her. An old neighbor. She was walking her dog. I asked if she remembered the family who lived in the house across the street. Oh, sure, she said. That was the Holloways. Strange folks. Took in a baby once, I think. The mother died or ran off, something like that. Can't remember. I asked if they had a son. No, I think it was a little girl, if I'm not mistaken. She squinted at me. Wait, why are you asking? I thanked her and left. Drove home with my head pounding. Later that night, I brought it up to my mom. Not the neighbor, just the address. I asked her if we'd ever lived there. Her face changed. Not confused, not surprised, but disappointed. Like a teacher catching a student peeking at the answer key. We don't talk about that, she said, calm, controlled. It was a long time ago. I pushed. But why is it on my documents? Why was my birth recorded 2 years late? Her hands tightened around her coffee mug. You don't know what you're doing, Alex. Some things are better left alone. She left the room, and I sat there, knowing, absolutely knowing, that I had just crossed a line, that I had poked at something fragile, something buried deep enough that it was never meant to surface. That night, I went back to the attic, and this time I opened the one box I had always avoided. My dad's box. Military records. Letters. A folded photo of a woman who wasn't my mother. And at the bottom, a file, thick and yellowed, marked confidential. Inside, a police report. 1991. Infant found at rest stop off Highway 4. No witnesses, no ID, no missing person report filed that matched. The name on the intake sheet? Baby Doe. Estimated age, 2 years. Estimated birth year, mine. I couldn't sleep after that. I tried to tell myself it wasn't about me, that Baby Doe could have been anyone, that it was just some old file my dad held onto for work or curiosity or whatever excuse I needed to breathe normally again. But deep down, I knew. And that's when the dreams started. Or maybe they were memories. I couldn't tell anymore. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, convinced I had heard a woman crying, not in the dream, but in the room. I'd flick on the light and find everything still, silent, but my heartbeat told another story. Something was shaking loose inside me. I started writing everything down, dates, places, things people said that didn't line up. I felt like I was building a map of a life that wasn't mine, trying to trace how I got from a rest stop on a highway to Sunday dinners in a beige suburban home. I stopped answering my mom's calls. She texted, "You're scaring me." I read it 10 times before deleting it. Then I confronted my dad. I didn't plan it. I just walked into the garage one afternoon while he was fixing the sink and said, "Do you remember a girl named Emily?" He looked up slowly, wiped his hands with a towel. "Where did you hear that name?" So it was real. "She's in the letters," I said. "In your box. You called her our mistake." He didn't speak, just stared at me. His eyes weren't angry. They weren't even ashamed. They were blank, hollow. "You're looking in the wrong direction," he finally said. "Emily isn't the secret. You are." I don't remember what I said after that. I just remember the sound in my ears, like a vacuum, like the air had left the room. I left the house without grabbing my coat, drove until the tank ran low, and then something snapped. Not a breakdown, not yet, but something tighter, more dangerous, a refusal to be passive anymore. If I was stolen, if I was lied to, I wanted names, faces, facts. I went to the state archives, filed a request under the Freedom of Information Act. It took weeks. They fought me on privacy grounds. I pushed, hired a lawyer, emptied my savings. And then, one morning, it came in a sealed envelope, a copy of the original missing child report from 1991. A woman named Sarah Langford had filed it. Her 2-year-old son had disappeared during a road trip while she was getting gas. The file was closed a year later. Presumed abduction, no recovery. There was a photo. The boy had curly dark hair, a small scar above his lip. The same scar I've always had but never knew how I got. And written in faded ink at the top corner, Aaron Langford. I stared at it for minutes before whispering it aloud. It didn't sound like me, but somehow it felt more real than Alex ever had. I found her. Sarah Langford lived 3 hours north, in a modest white house on the edge of a small town I'd never heard of. She taught piano from her living room. Her last name had changed? Remarried, maybe? But I recognized her immediately from the photo in the report. Just older now. Grayer hair. Deeper lines. But the same eyes. My eyes! I parked across the street and watched her for 10 minutes. I felt like a thief, an intruder in someone else's life. But I had no plan. I hadn't thought past this point. Then she looked up, through the window, and for a second, just a second, her face changed. Her mouth parted. Her hand fell away from the curtain. She recognized me. She knew. I crossed the street. She opened the door before I could knock. Didn't say a word. Just looked at me like she'd been rehearsing this moment in her mind for decades. Finally, Aaron? The name hit me like a brick to the chest. I nodded, but the tears came first. I didn't cry often, but this wasn't crying. This was breaking, like something inside me collapsed that I didn't even know was still standing. She held me, just for a minute, like she wasn't sure she was allowed. Then she led me inside. There were no pictures of me on her walls, no candles, no shrines. It wasn't the home of a grieving mother frozen in time. It was quiet, clean, lived in. I always wondered, she said, if you'd ever find me, if you were alive. I wanted to ask everything. Why didn't you fight harder? Why didn't you find me? Who took me? But the words caught in my throat. She must have seen it. I tried, she said. God, I tried so hard, but no one believed me. They said I left you, that I must have sold you, or worse. I was 21, poor, alone. They didn't listen. Then she showed me the newspaper clippings, the police interviews, the rejection letters from private investigators, the stack of ignored pleas, and then she paused. There's something else you need to know, she said. You weren't the only one. I froze. What do you mean? There were others. Babies taken, adopted illegally. Some from hospitals, some from poor families like me. I think your adoptive parents, they weren't the only ones who paid for silence. I wanted to deny it. To say no, they weren't like that. But the file in the attic, the blank stares, the timing, it all fit. They didn't just find me, they bought me. And suddenly the warmth of childhood felt like poison. That night I drove home, if you could even call it that, and didn't go inside. I sat in the car until morning, watching the windows, wondering if the people inside had ever really loved me, or if I'd just been a product of their desperation. When my mom came to the window and saw me there, she didn't look shocked. She looked tired, like she knew the story was almost over. It's been 4 days. I haven't gone back inside, they haven't come out. I don't know if they're afraid, ashamed, or just waiting for me to disappear again. The way I once appeared, neatly, quietly, no questions asked. I haven't called Sarah either. I want to. I rehearse it. But every time I try, my throat locks. Because I don't know how to be her son. I don't know how to unlearn 32 years of someone else's story. And I don't know who I am without it. I keep staring at my hands, wondering which parts are mine and which were borrowed. I wonder how much of me was shaped by love, and how much by a lie told well enough, long enough, that I started calling it truth. They told me my name was Alex. Now I know it's Aaron. But somehow, I feel more like nobody than ever before.